Om Shanti. Let us sit in silence for some time and reflect. Sit very still and just think about your relationship with God. Try to recollect all the moments in this lifetime when you really thought about God, when you called out to Him. Ask yourself deeply, what is it that you always wanted from Him? Sometimes you asked Him questions and looked for answers. Sometimes you asked Him why you are in sorrow and asked Him to take away your sorrow. At other times, you asked Him to fulfill your desires. Sometimes you asked Him for help. Other times you asked Him to save you from something or the other. You have always been talking to God in some way or the other, not knowing whether He's listening. Sometimes knowing that yes, He listened, yes, He answered. Other times wondering, don't know what's going on. Now look at this moment of your life. You are the soul who God has come and embraced in His arms. He's quietly, gradually answering all your questions. Telling you the cause of sorrow and also the way to come out of it. He's telling you He cannot solve your problems because He didn't create them, but He can teach you how to solve them for yourself. Just hold the hand of God. The hand of God is the directions He is giving you. Every day, He is guiding you, telling you about the truth, about karma, about the inner power you need to exercise. Just hold His hand. Let Him guide you on this path. Just follow what He says. take into consideration his teaching while coming into action. For a few seconds, just appreciate the presence of God around you. Be still. Know He is here, right in front of you, right beside you, telling you all you need to know, giving you all you need to have. Just appreciate this moment with Baba. Om Shanti. So, we always called out to God and told Him, take away my sorrow, give me happiness, or sometimes we gave Him more specific directions, like give me this, so that will give me happiness. So in case He might not be able to figure out, so we were very specific that okay, so I don't want to be vague about happiness. I need a car, so give me a car, I'll get happiness from the car. So basically, sometimes we asked for happiness indirectly, sometimes we asked for happiness in a more direct way, the way we thought happiness would be received or experienced. So these are the ways we have been talking to God with. And then if you look at the hymns and praises you sang in bhakti, then you said you are the purifier, Patit Pavan. So the one who makes the Patit into Pavan. So the one who converts the impure into pure. So you said you are the purifier. You said you are the Dukh Harta Sukh Karta, means the one who takes away sorrow and gives happiness. Then you said you are the one who fulfills all desires, Sarva Manokamnai Puri Kar Dene Wala. And then you said you are all powerful, so you give me all powers. So these are some of the things that we told God. Now, did you ever think that God would come and actually give you all of that? So we never thought that He would actually come and give us all of that. And I will tell you one incident. So there was one Jagrata. So in Delhi, there are these Mata ki Chauki mein there is Jagrata. So all night they just stay awake and they keep praising Shakti Ma, mein, whether it is Ma Durga or Jagdamba or whoever they have their devotion towards. So they called me in one Jagrata once and they said, Didi, you also speak something in that Jagrata. So I went there and then I waited for 2 hours and there was so much of music and so much of sound that I didn't think I could deliver a lecture there. So I just sat there and I was enjoying whatever was going on. And then I kept telling Baba, Baba, how do I introduce you as the ocean of peace and silence when there is so much of sound all around? So, anyways, let me just wait and see what can be done. So I kept waiting. And while waiting, also, I was very happy, enjoying all that was going on. And then suddenly the lights went out, and there was absolute silence. And the generator didn't work. So they had a generator, but that didn't operate. So then they had nothing, but only the mic was working. It was very interesting. So everything went out, only the mic worked. Now, then everybody's eyes turned towards me and they handed me over the mic and they said, Didi, now it's your turn. Now everybody is silent. Now you speak. So then I said, okay. So Baba has created an environment where I can speak finally. So I called them and they all sat in a big circle around me. And then I asked them, so you are calling out to Durga Ma rather vehemently, and you are really kind of coercing her to come down. So what if she just comes down right now? And just visualize Durga Ma is sitting in front of you, then what do you tell her or how do you talk to her? And she has not come for 2 minutes or 1 minute or for just darshan. She's come to stay with you. So now she's here and she will go back home with you and she will stay with you for the rest of your life. And then what do you tell her? So so they were all very confused, and they had never thought that this kind of a tragedy could happen. So they were just shocked at my question. And then I said, so, but you were calling her, so she should answer your call, is it not? Or do you think you should keep calling and God should just disregard your calls and not answer your calls? So then they said, okay. So they kept quiet, very quiet. It was absolutely still, pin drop silence. And then I told them that, okay, so now that Durga Ma is here, so, in all the stories that we heard about God arriving, it was always very simple. So the simple part was you have three wishes. Okay, and God only stays until you can just speak out those three wishes. And as soon as you speak out those three wishes, then God has this magic wand and he just casts that on you and he leaves. So he doesn't stay another minute to disturb your schedule, and he doesn't say anything else. He just comes, he says Tathastu, he wields the magic wand and then he leaves. So in all the stories, it was very simple. But then now, if God just came and He said, now I'm a part of your life, you have been calling me for so many years and ages and births. So now I have answered your call and I'll stay with you. What do you do about God? So now God wakes up at 4. Okay, so when you have a guest who wakes up early, what do? You wake up with him. So now God will wake up at 4, so you have to wake up with him. Then will he eat any non-vegetarian or that onion garlic stuff that you consume? He will not eat all of that. That is why on days of puja, you don't eat all of that. So then what kind of food will you prepare in your kitchen? And then what kind of conversation will you have at home? Will you talk about, will you have conversations based on lust and greed and anger in front of God? So you must think about these things. So, we always approach this whole subject of spirituality and meditation in a very non-serious manner. But this is serious stuff. So if God actually comes and stays with you, it's going to get serious. And probably that's what's happening right now. So he has already come and started staying with you. So this is why if you want something from God, you have to give something to him. And what is the most important thing or most valuable thing that he needs is some space in your mind, right? He needs or rather your whole mind. Okay, so have you heard about that story about Raja Janak? So Raja Janak once announced that I want to know the formula for Jivan Mukti. So let me introduce you to the concept of Jivan Mukti. So you must have heard about Mukti, which is people think that it is just getting rid of the cycle of birth and death, right? But those very people, they cannot they cannot part away with 1 rupee coin, but they want to get free from this whole cycle of birth and death. So how do you do that with so much of attachment inside you? So I don't think that people who are detached talk about mukti, and people who are attached are not eligible to talk about mukti. So this is how it goes. But anyways, we will talk about mukti later on. Today I want to talk about Jivan Mukti. So what is Jivan Mukti? So Jivan Mukti is a concept which comes in the story of Raja Janak, and you know that Raja Janak was called Videhi and Raj Rishi. So Raj Rishi means one who is an equally a saint and a king. So you are a rishi and you are a raja, both. And you are videhi, that is, you are in the body, but you are above body consciousness. So that is what Raja Janak stands for. And in this story about Raja Janak made an announcement to his court that I want to find somebody who gives me a formula for Jivan Mukti. So Jivan Mukti means a state where you are in the body, you are in the kingdom, you are with family, you are with everything, but you are not in bondage. You are not in bondage. That is, they don't have an effect on you. So they do not press your buttons precisely, right? So that is Jivan Mukti. So when Raja Janak made this announcement that I want to find somebody who gives me a formula for Jivan Mukti, and that formula that person should give me in a second, like they should give me a formula which makes me Jivan Mukt in 1 second. So that is why it is always said you can be Jivan Mukt in a second. So now you are in bondage and then you can be completely free in this life in a second. So Jivan Mukti ka formula is 1 second long. That is how it is described in the scriptures. Now it so happened that when he made this announcement, then several people attempted giving him that formula. But he was not satisfied with any of them. And then in his court, there entered a person who was called Ashtavakra. And this Ashtavakra had some physical deformity in 8 of his physical organs. That is why he was Ashtavakra. So his body was not straight aligned in 8 places. Okay, so 8 jagah se vakra ya tedha. So that is Ashtavakra. So when he entered the court, everybody started laughing, looking at him. So then Ashtavakra told Raja Janak, I thought that you have a court which is full of wise people, but I only see chamar here. So, you know who is a chamar? So, in the Indian caste system, the one who only deals with leather or skin, that is called chamar. So, people who make shoes and all out of leather are called chamar. So, then he said, ये तो चमारों की सभा है. I thought ये विद्वानों की सभा है. So then Raja Janak said, why do you say so? So he said, because these people can only look at the skin. So they are only seeing that I have physical deformities, but they do not see that I am not this body. So they are not wise people in your court. So then Raja Janak had a thought that this person maybe is in a position to tell me what Jivan Mukti formula is. And then Ashtavakra made this claim that I will give you the formula to be Jivan Mukt in 1 second, but what will you give me in return? So Raja Janak said, you can have whatever you want. So maybe I can give you half the kingdom. So Ashtavakra said, how can you give me something that doesn't even belong to you? So the kingdom doesn't belong to you. The kingdom belongs to the praja, to the people. So how can you give that kingdom away to me? So you give me something that is completely yours. So then Raja Janak didn't know what to give. So then Ashtavakra said, you give me your mind. So if you give me your mind, I can give you the formula for Jivan Mukti. So then Ashtavakra said, okay, then you can have my mind. So then he said, now, since your mind belongs to me, I order you that you don't think about anyone or anything and only think about God. So then you will be Jivan Mukt. That is, you will live in this life, but you will not be influenced by anyone or anything, because anyone or anything cannot have a power over your life if it doesn't have a power over your mind. So if something doesn't play in your mind, how can that affect your life? Okay, so from this story you can understand the meaning of man mana bhav, that is mentioned in Gita. So man mana bhav means give your mind to me. So God says, you give your mind to me and I will give you everything that you need. Because basically the whole problem starts and ends with our mind. So where are all the problems? The desires, the fears, the sorrows, they are all in the mind. So if you give your mind to God, that is, instead of doing parchintan and pardarshan, if you do swachintan, Paramatma Chintan, that is, if you don't engage your mind in thinking about people, places, and things, but you engage your mind in thinking about yourself, your qualities, your powers, and if at all, if there is a problem experienced by your mind, then you think about what is it that I am seeing wrong or doing wrong, because of which I'm experiencing this state of mind. Then if you engage your mind in Swachintan and Paramatma Chintan, in thinking about yourself, your qualities, your deficiencies, your powers, and in thinking about God, then all your problems will be solved. All right. So when God comes, he tells you, give me your mind. Can you give that? Okay, so if you can give that, then God will give you everything in return. So basically, you don't have to ask God for anything. You have to know what the rules are. And if you become man mana bhav, that is, you give your mind to God, then he gives you the peace, the happiness, the what do you say, the all the treasures that you're looking for. Because if your mind is so powerful and so rich, then it also attracts all the goodness in the world. So it's not just peace and happiness that you experience, but you actually attract all the good things in the world by giving your mind to God. Now, How many people are living on your mind without even paying rent? So, so there are so many people who are living on your mind and not even paying a rent and taxing your mind heavily. There are so many things of the past that are just taking some corner of your mind, and those things are long gone and they are not coming back. But still, they are renting a space in your mind without even paying the rent. So there are so many worries about the future, fears about the future that you are harboring in your mind. So you just clear all that space and fill that with thinking about yourself, which is you, the soul, the qualities of you, the soul, the powers of you, the soul, and about God. So, how God belongs to you, and how He looks, and where He lives, and what He is doing for you. If you can just do that, that is equal to giving your mind to God. Can you do that? Can you let go of everything from your mind? Yes. Because basically, in sannyas, what they did is they let go everything physically, but then it was all there in the mind. Right? So you don't have to let go of anything physically, because anyways the physical reality cannot affect you. So what you do is you mentally let go of everything and just take to thinking about yourself and about God. And anyways, you are not helping the world too much by thinking about it. Okay, so did you so many people thought about the coronavirus, but it's growing, it's not going away. So if all our thoughts put together were doing something, then I think they are increasing the intensity of the virus rather than doing something to eliminate it. So we are all using our minds in the wrong way. So when God comes, He says, whatever you want from me can be had in an exchange offer. You give your mind to me, and I give everything to you. All right, so this is what Man Manabhav means. Now, I today want to talk about, I want you to keep thinking about God a little, okay? Because the thing is, we have created a culture where we don't think about God, okay? And this is why we think about all the people, places, and things we don't need to be thinking about. So, this is why every day I am giving you something or the other so that you start thinking about God and start in that thought process, start giving some of your thoughts to Him. And, if you just start thinking about God, He starts touching you. That is, He starts giving you some thoughts which you never had. And this process, which is in the very nascent stages, where you start thinking about God, is the starting point of having a conversation with God. So when you start conversing with God, you start receiving answers which you never thought you knew. So this is the starting point. Now today, the main thing about which I want to talk is, so we understood that the world is not operated by God, the world is operated by the law of karma. So you reap as you sow, and it's not like some external agent is doing something. And I have a problem with the way God is depicted in religion sometimes, because if you look at the depiction of Ravan, so Ravan is portrayed as a very big Bhagat. So Ravan is portrayed as a Shiv Bhakt. And it is said that Ravan was a very big devotee of Shiva, and Lord Shiva or God Shiva gave him a lot of powers. Yes. So I wanted to talk to you today about the fact that we understood that God doesn't operate this world, and this world operates on the according to the law of karma. So as you sow, so shall you reap. Now, today I want to talk about whether God creates this world. Okay, so do you think God creates this world? How many think yes, God creates this world? Okay, so God creates this world. So, so I want you to think about this question. If you look at the world around you, there are three things in this world: souls, matter, and God. There are souls, matter, and God. Is there anything that is fourth, any fourth thing in this world? Everything is covered in these three things: souls, matter, and God, right? Now, about matter, science says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it can only change from one form to another. And about souls and the Supreme Soul or God, it is said that they are never born and never die. Right? Ajar Amar Avinashi. So if this is the case, then all the three aspects, which is souls, matter, and God, are eternal and indestructible. So no beginning, no end. Right? Never born, never die. If this is so, then where does the question of creation arise? All right, so basically, souls, matter, and God, all three of them don't have a beginning or an end. So, because they don't have a beginning or an end, so we cannot talk about the beginning of creation, because there is no beginning. All right. So if there is no beginning, then how is the whole world functioning? So you must have heard this word eternity. Yes, eternal. So what is eternal? Something that has no beginning and no end. But the problem is, we use these words, we know these words, but we don't understand what they mean. So if I tell you to think about eternity as a practical reality, you don't know how eternity looks like in reality. So our brains are programmed into linear thinking. So we always think that something has a beginning, middle, and an end. But the thing is, not everything in the universe fits into linear thinking. So the operation of the world doesn't fit into linear thinking. And this whole universe is eternal. There is no beginning, no end. And when we think about no beginning, no end, we don't know how to understand that. And this is why we say no beginning, no end, but then we again say, okay, but there must be some beginning. Because we are so fixated with linear thinking. Now, when we say there is no beginning, no end, what it means is this is a cycle. And in a cycle, there is no beginning, no end. Okay, so the beginning has something prior to it, and the end has something that follows it. Right? So in a cycle, there is no point which has no no past or no future. So there is something that happened before that point and something that will happen after that point. So this is about the principle of continuity. And there is basically, in this whole universe, there is no point where there is nothing that precedes it and nothing that will follow it. All right. And this is why, even though scientists have attempted a lot, they have never been able to come up with the answer whether the hen came first or the hen or the egg came first. Okay, so, or whether the seed came first or the tree came first. So, why can't you answer these questions? Because the principle or the law of eternity is, if I could summarize it for you in one line, last effect is first cause. Last effect is first cause. So everything that happened prior to this event is the cause for this event, and what I am doing right now is the cause of the next. So the seed is the cause of the plant, and the plant is the cause of the seed. Okay, so the hen gives birth to the egg, and then the egg hatches into the hen, and then the hen gives birth to the egg. So this is how it goes on. So this is the principle of eternity. Last effect is first cause, and that is why there is no beginning and no end. So you cannot start over. Okay, so there is nothing like starting over, because you are where you are right now, and anywhere you go has to begin from this point. Okay, so every second is a new beginning, if you look at it like that, and totally, if you see, there is no beginning. Okay, so you can't start all over again. So because there you will always carry a baggage. So if you want to start over, there is only one way to do it, which is leave the baggage, because the baggage is always there. So if you want to start over, you leave the baggage and you can start right now. But you cannot go somewhere in the future and then start all over again. That doesn't happen. Are you getting my point? It's a very it might look complicated, but it is a very simple thing to understand, that because there is no beginning and no end, so there is always continuity. So the problem in life is, you will always live with yourself. Okay, so up until now, you thought that living with other people is a problem, but the problem is you will always live with yourself. And you will always live with all the things you have done in the past, and whatever you have made of yourself from what you did in the past. So that is why, if you want to change your future, it starts now, which is you drop your idea of you, which is based on all the baggage you're carrying. All right, so this is how it goes. So there is no beginning and no end where you can really start afresh. So you can start afresh just right now by dropping all the baggage that you're carrying. Okay, are you carrying baggage? Big ones. Okay, so you have to drop that if you want to start afresh. So every second you can start afresh, and otherwise you can never start afresh. Okay, so you will always have all of eternity as a baggage with you. Okay, now, what is your baggage? What is your baggage? What is the baggage you are carrying? It is thoughts, past. Okay, so you have memories, yes. You have career. Career is not a baggage. If it's not there, how can be it be a baggage? So, so the thing is, we. Okay. Anyways, I don't want to go into this. So we expect from our children and spouse. So that is a baggage. So you have woven in your own like inner space a big baggage of expectation. There is ego, there is others behavior which is not actually about their behavior but how you interpreted it. So I will tell you one, once I was discussing something with a wise person, and I said, my childhood was very nice, and all nice things happened in childhood, and childhood was really nice and nothing wrong happened in childhood. So that person said, no, it was because you were naive in childhood. So you recorded it nicely. so, so it's not about what happens, it's about how you perceive it. And as children, we don't know how to perceive it in a complicated way. So we perceive it in a very simple way. All right. And when we get complicated, then everything around us gets complicated because we just look at it from that filter of complication. Right? So, in your childhood, if somebody borrowed a pen from you, they just borrowed a pen. But in adulthood, when somebody borrows a pen from you, then you give it so many meanings. Like they have a pen, but they don't want to use their pen, they want to use your pen, and they want to save their ink, and they want to just finish up whatever ink your pen has, and all of that stuff. So, it is basically how you interpret it that creates baggage. So the baggage is the complication that is inside us. The baggage is the ego. The baggage is, the biggest baggage is, I am right and other people are wrong. Yes, and there is a saying, you can either be right or you can be happy. You can't be both. So as long as you are right, you can't be happy because then somebody is wrong and you need to be unhappy about they being wrong. So there is a whole baggage about my opinion is the right opinion, my idea is the right idea, my lifestyle is the right kind of lifestyle. Now my gender is the right gender. Okay, so if I'm a woman, you are only right if you are a woman, and if you're a man, you are wrong. So my gender is the right kind of gender, my age is the right age, my opinion is the right opinion, my lifestyle is the right lifestyle, my culture, my religion is the only right religion and culture. So all this baggage we are carrying, and if you want to have a fresh start, you have to drop that baggage. You have to drop that baggage of I and my, whatever is included in that. Okay, so how should we think? We should think that I am this way and it is good, and they are that way and it is great. Okay, so and you can always, by understanding somebody's perspective. So what I have understood in this whole journey is, if you just open your eyes and ears and with acceptance try to observe people and things and situations around you without labeling them as right or wrong, you learn tremendously. Okay, so I learned I learned various ways in which to cut fruits by just observing how different people do it. So, and when you are just consumed by this thought that my kind of fruit cutting is the right kind of fruit cutting, then you never learn. And I found out that you can learn very easy methods by just observing without labeling and without judgment how other people do the same thing. Okay, so this is something that we need to understand. We are all different. Nobody is right or wrong. So when we talk about this whole world being eternal and this whole play being eternal, where souls are eternal, matter is eternal, and God is eternal, and last effect is first cause, and there is no beginning and no end, then what does God do in all of this? So, what God does is, in the Gita, you must have heard that um, जब धर्म की ग्लानि हो जाती है ना, अति धर्म ग्लानि होती है, तो मैं अनेक धर्मों का विनाश कर एक सद्धर्म की स्थापना करता हूँ. So if I put it in a what do you say, very simple language, it would be that when this whole world reaches a state of chaos, right, utter chaos, where there is dharam glani, which means nobody knows what to do and how to do what, then God comes and finishes all belief systems, everything, and then He establishes the one true religion or the one true belief system. Right. So, if you see, nowadays there are so many religions, and by religion, it is I want you to understand that when we say dharma, it is not about the practiced religions only. So dharma means dharana. Dharana means what you hold as a belief or as a philosophy or as an idea or as a concept inside you. So when I was talking about karma, I told you that dharma and karma are related. So, who you think you are or what your philosophy of life is very related to how you conduct yourself. Yes, so when we talk about dharma actually means dharana, those belief systems, those concepts, those ideas that you hold inside of yourself. So these days, any idea, so nowadays people have started saying that how does it matter whether I think this or think that? Everything is fine. And people say I don't know is the new word in fashion. So it is better to not know than to know. But then dharam glani means when the ideas, concepts, and belief systems through which you operate um, are have become very flexible, and there is no solid ground that they have, or you are not firm about them or clear about them. So now if I ask you, do you have a personal philosophy about anything? So, how many of you have a discipline, like you wake up the same time every day, or you eat a certain kind of food, or you stick to a certain timetable, or you stick to a certain thought process and behavior? Yes, so a few of you, right? So, there are basically, people these days do not have any philosophy or belief system as such. And this is about waking up and eating and going to sleep and this stuff. But then, do you have a philosophy about what kind of content you watch? Or do you have a philosophy about how you see other people? Or does that vary from person to person? Or do you have a personal philosophy about how you think about other people or how you behave with them, come what may? So these are also there. So if you have a personal philosophy about everything, that is your dharam. So these days we are going through a phase of dharam glani where there is no certainty and no philosophy about anything, right? So how I behave, how I conduct myself is very dependent on the other person's behavior, right? If somebody shouts at you, then probably you shout back. Or if somebody tries to, then if somebody tries to kill you, what do? You kill them back. Yes, so then we call it self defense, right? So this is how it is going. So all our life has become a series of reactions. So we are reacting more than we are acting. So this is the time of dharam glani. When we don't have any dharam, we don't know what is our personal philosophy of life, and we don't have our own value system where love is a value or peace is a value, and come what may, I hold on to it. Okay, so this is something. So when this kind of a dharam glani and a time of dharam glani comes in, then God comes and establishes one religion. One religion means he gives you he gives you a, what is the way to operate, what is the time to wake up, what is the time to sleep, what is the right kind of food to eat, what is the right attitude to have, what is the right consciousness to have, how do you see people, how do you see situations. He gives you an angle about everything which is very, very clear. There is no doubt about it. Okay, so he tells you that nobody is an evil soul. Okay, so there are people who will teach you how to deal with other people, but they will say you deal with other people with love, but then there are toxic people also, and then when you meet them, you deal with them in a toxic way. So that is not what God teaches us. God teaches us one dharam, which is crystal clear path where you know what is the consciousness you need to hold come what may, what is the attitude you need to have come what may, what is the perspective about situations, about people, about places, about things, what is the attitude with which you look at your body, how do you look at money. So everything God gives you, and that is why it is called Shrimat. Shrimat means the opinion of God. And when you receive God's opinion, so you must have heard this word Shrimat in Gita, Shrimat Bhagavanu Vach. So when you get this Shrimat or the opinion of God, then you come to know what is what and what does God think about everything. Okay, so whenever you see somebody, you don't have to discern or you don't have to evaluate. You just know they are a soul, and every soul has four things: man, buddhi, acquired sanskar, and original sanskar. End of story. End of story. You don't need to think another thought about any soul at all. And if you just adopt Shrimat, that is what God says about everything, everyone, every situation, then you have a very crystal clear path. And that is why out of this, one dharam is established. One dharam means where there is no doubt about or no difference of opinion about what is what. All right. So, does it make sense to you? So, this is what God does. So, God comes at the end when there is utter chaos. You think this is the time when there is utter chaos, or you think it can go worse? Are things at their worst, or do you think there is still a lot of scope? So, so if you see, they are at their worst. So when a 3-month old gets molested, so it can't get worse than this. When When children kill their parents or parents kill their own children, it can't get worse than that. Okay, when people start looting and stealing from their own houses, it can't get worse than that. So this is the way it is happening. So, and when anger is not the problem, attachment has become the problem. Do you know these days anger is not the problem, attachment is the problem. So if you see very bright children who have done academically exceedingly well, they are sitting at homes without jobs because they can't work. Why? Because they have zero tolerance, they don't know how to adjust, they don't know how to face, they don't know how to live in an environment where people are a little different from them. So, this is what attachment is doing to children these days. Yes, I know of a girl and she studied in UCLA and finance, and she came back to India and she worked with a top company, top multinational, and then she quit the job and her mother brought her to me, and I asked her what is the issue. So she said, I have a problem with how people are in the office and there are closed spaces, and I don't like this culture, and I can't survive in this culture, and everybody is so conservative, and I don't like all of this. So I said, see, if the whole country has a problem and the whole country is not okay, then don't you think it's time for you to adjust? Because it is too much to ask for on your part for that a whole country should adjust for you. So that's not going to happen. So then I told her, why, if you find it convenient in the US, why don't you go back? So she said, no, they are not taking me. So you don't understand that there is a problem with you if everyone looks not okay to you. So this is how we have become, and this is because, not because of anger or ego, but this is because of attachment. And this is how parents are raising children these days, where they have IQ but they have no EQ or AQ, adversity quotient. So they crumble at the slightest knock of adversity. So it can't get worse than this. All right. So this is the time when God has come, and He is in this time of Dharam Glani, and He is teaching you how to go back to one religion, and how He has come and how He is teaching you, we will cover tomorrow. Okay. Om Shanti. Let me take up questions. Okay, so sometimes I feel that I could have done more for my parents or in-laws who are no more now. That's okay. That's also a burden you are carrying. You you should always know that the past is never imperfect. The past is always perfect. Okay, so never second guess the past. It doesn't help. And if your past made you realize or come to this conclusion that you could have done more, then you did enough because you learned the right lessons. So you can do more for people who are there right now. I'm preparing for my CAT exam but unable to study. I always think that I will start from tomorrow. Why don't you think I will start today? So you think I will start today, not start tomorrow, and not today, I will start now. That is why it is said, Kal kare so aaj kare so ab. So don't think I will start from tomorrow. Say, I am starting right now. Take your books and sit down. That's the only way. Okay. What a wonderful coincidence. I was looking for practicing of presence of God. Okay, thank you. I hurt my mother and constantly feel guilty. She is no more now, and I seek forgiveness from her every day. But I know this is not enough. What more can I do? So you can be kind to people who are there. That's it. And you know, never never second guess your past. As I said, the past, you couldn't have made the past better. Know this for a fact. So it was meant to be the way it unfolded. So let's just keep it like this, that it was meant to be the way it unfolded. So there was nothing you could have done anyway. So if you come to know this one fact and hold this in your heart, then you only know what to do now. Never go into the past and try to think you could have made it better. That's not possible. The past unfolded in the way it was meant to unfold, and that is okay. Okay. So souls are multiplying, as there were 40 crores earlier and now 135 crores. Yes, so new ones are coming from the soul world to here. We will talk about these things in the future sessions. Who wrote the holy books and why do we follow the teachings mentioned there? Do you follow them? You only question them, nobody follows them. Okay, so we okay, so does God give us answers during meditation and actually talks to us, or does he give us indication of what we need to do during the day? God gives you a full hour lecture in the morning through me. Okay, so focus on that. So don't focus on something subtle, because there you will take advantage of the things that are not very clear and turn it around according to your advantage. So don't do that. Focus on the class. Very clearly, God is telling you what the truth is. Okay. How God comes to establish one religion. This we will do tomorrow. This is the chapter tomorrow. Root of all problems is hurt. If we come to a state of hurtlessness, then all problems are resolved, right? So the root of all problems is hurt, and the root of all hurt is ego. Okay, so you should know that you have to surrender. You have to surrender to destiny. You have to surrender to what is. And if you don't surrender and don't stop being egoistic about your idea, then you will keep creating hurt. So when I told you that there is no way you could have changed the past, this is an act of surrender. It might not look like that, but this is a very big act of surrender, where you surrender your idea that you could have made it better and accept the law that the past was meant to be the way it unfolded. So I just have to surrender to what was and surrender to what is, and just keep thinking about what I need to do in the present moment. And all that happened in the past and how we interpreted it based on ego is what is giving rise to all this hurt. And I also mentioned it earlier and I will repeat it today. We have a very big culture of feel guilty, do nothing. So let's change that culture to don't feel guilty and do what you can do. Okay? So instead of feel guilty, do nothing, do everything and don't feel guilty. Okay, so this is the right approach to live life. I want to do good for the people, but I always end up by annoying them. So you focus on doing good to yourself right now. So then other people can wait and they can. So if you just make yourself resourceful right now, that's enough. And other people can wait for now. Don't think of doing good to other people before you do good to yourself. So, I take a class at 7:30, and from 3:30 to 7:30, I do good to myself, which is I meditate, I exercise, I breathe, I take care of myself so that I can take care of you. If I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of you. Okay, so one needs to know that everybody needs to take care of themselves. If at all, they have to take care of others. And taking care of others is optional, but taking care of yourself is mandatory, because you will live with yourself forever. So you better be good to yourself. Okay, so other people will come and go, but you will live with yourself forever. You better be good to yourself. I try to follow holy book by just doing good karma and not thinking about fruit. But if I ask you what does the holy book talk about good karma, then there is no clarity. Okay, so this is why I told you we don't follow the scriptures because we don't put invest that much of time and energy in understanding what they're actually trying to say. All right? Chalo, let's meditate. Sit quietly in a state of surrender. Just surrender your idea of what should be and what shouldn't be. We have a lot of ideas about what should be and what shouldn't be with regard to the past, the future, people, and situations. Tell yourself loud and clear, it is what it is. It is what it is. It couldn't be otherwise. In this state of surrender, there is complete acceptance of the past, all the people around you and situations around you. There is no worry of the future. In this state of surrender, the mind is still, very peaceful. In this state of peace, I'm able to think clearly about what to do in the now. This present moment is all I have. I focus on the now. I do my best in the now. I free my mind space enough to take the best decisions in the now. Just sit in these feelings for some time. Om Shanti.